Is it true that the NHS has just shared all of your personal and private medical information with a company in the United States? The short answer, officially at least, is no. The longer answer will take a little bit more explanation. Plus, I have an option for you to safeguard your personal information coming later in this video. But first of all, one of the videos, along with certain headlines that caught my attention, was this one.
Imagine all of your personal medical information was shared with America's scariest tech giant. You don't need to imagine because it's just happened.
Now, let's break that down. First of all, there are two things in that first statement that I'd like to break down. First of all, the statement that it is all of your NHS information and that it has already been handed over to this company in the United States. And secondly, that it's one of the world's scariest tech giants. Now, this company is called Palantir. And they say that it's a scary tech giant because it's well known for working with military intelligence, the CIA, and various other organizations. So that leads me into the longer answer to this question before even coming to explain the short one. But the longer explanation is going to be a prey on your cynicism. How much do you trust these companies not to actually access your data? Because winding back to the short version for a moment, the short answer to this question is no. This data has not already and will not be handed over to this company, at least according to NHS England. Now, I'm not expressing my view either way here. I just know that some of you won't believe the official answer. But the official answer is as follows. In answer to the question, who will be able to see this data? NHS England says that the Federated Data Platform, which is essentially a piece of software developed by Palantir, which brings different bits of information together from different databases and allows the platform and the user of that platform to see and utilize all of these data points from different databases at once. It will only allow access, according to NHS England, to patient data for people that need to use it as part of their everyday work in the NHS. And it goes on to say only authorised users will be granted access to the data for approved purposes. For example, NHS staff, those supporting them, such as administrators, bed managers, care coordinators, and staff in social care, supporting them from the move from hospital care. Now, this has obviously caused lots of people to go back to the NHS data opt-out. Now, I put forward two competing and opposing views on the NHS data opt-out, which is actually sort of irrelevant for this point, but I'm explaining it because it's popped up in the headlines. I gave two competing views on this last time and gave you the choice. The reason for collecting the data is it is obviously good for medical research. It assists new medical developments and so on to have more data. The reason against was that you might feel that unless you opt out, not being given the choice before the data is collected is wrong. Therefore, forcing it to be an opt-out rather than an opt-in, you may feel was not appropriate. In other words, you may feel that you ought to opt in to your data being collected as opposed to opt out for it to be shared among universities and research companies and so on. However, that is somewhat irrelevant for the purposes of this discussion. I bring it up because many people are talking about it, and indeed, this video that I just showed you talks about how you might go about the opt-out from about, I think, 25 seconds onwards.
Of the NHS. The NHS offers just one way that you can keep your data private, and that's by the National Data Opt-out Scheme.
And that's sort of irrelevant because if we go back to the NHS website for a moment, it confirms here that no new data is going to be collected as part of this federal data platform. Existing data will be accessible where needed approved individuals. And again, it says further down here, no new data will be collected. Existing data will be used for analysing activity, auditing quality, planning service delivery, and so on. And even further into the website here, it provides that no company involved in the data platform can access health and data care without the explicit permission of the NHS. All data within the platform is under the control of the NHS and will only be used for direct care and planning. It will not be used for access data for research purposes, and GP data will not feed into the national version of the software platform. However, this did not prevent reports of the British Medical Association saying that it had written to the government with concerns about the federated data platform, arguing that the profession and patients were inadequately consulted. And this goes back to my previous point made about the national data opt-out some time ago, in that I felt that the public were not given informed consent for their data to be processed, or not given enough information about how it was going to be used and whether they could opt out. But as I say, strictly, this is irrelevant for the purposes of this discussion, because they say that existing data is going to be used and it's not ongoing collection of new data. And so suffice to say, it appears that the British Medical Association is concerned about the use of this platform. Dr. Patel being quoted to say, "It is not apparent that a full and considered ethical review has been carried out against all potential vendors, and in the space left by this inaction, speculation about the role, purpose and the scope of Palantir, as well as the existing involvement with the NHS data architecture, has cultivated fear amongst patients of how their confidential data will be handled." And so I say the longer version may well be that you remain skeptical as to how your data is going to be used. But as I say, the opt-out, which you've probably heard of, if not from the video I showed you, but from other sources, is strictly irrelevant for this conversation. And the official word of NHS England remains that your data is not going to be accessed by anybody outside of their role within the NHS, and that the NHS retains full control of that data. But talking about your data and control of your data, you may recall that I have a partner that works with me to support me on this channel called Incogni, which is a company which helps to remove your information from third-party companies that in turn sell your data onto other people. You see, marketers see you as a bit of a jigsaw puzzle that once put together, they might be able to sell you as a package to other companies and receive fairly hefty fees for doing so. And whilst on the one hand, that might just mean that you get more accurate adverts that are tailored to your wants and needs, bad actors in the marketplace might take this information and then start to impersonate you and even take out loans in your name and things of this nature. And you might be surprised to hear that there are a significant number of these, hundreds in fact, of these data brokers worldwide. Incogni is a service which will help to find these data brokers and request from them that they delete all of your personal information in accordance with data protection legislation. So you'll find a link in the description below with a unique discount where you can sign up, and Incogni will do all of the work for you. They will contact all of these data companies, insist that your data is removed in accordance with data protection legislation, and you will then be able to sleep with the peace of mind knowing that these companies cannot sell your data to companies across the planet who in turn try to impersonate you. So let's talk a little bit about data protection in general, because a lot of people seem to be confused by this. Now, data protection principles are around control of access and control of accuracy, and of course the control of the collection in the first place. There are a number of different ways that your data can be collected. Either by way of a contractual agreement, because within that contract you might consent to your data being collected. There might generally be a legitimate interest to collect your data, in which case there isn't a need for a contract at all. But either way, there must be a lawful basis to collect your information in the first place, which must be fair and transparent in the way that it's collected. It also must only be used for the purpose for which it was originally collected. So they can't collect your information for one reason and then use it for a whole number of different reasons that are outside of the scope of why they collected it in the first place. They must also only collect just enough information for the purpose for which it was collected, and obviously must be kept confidential, which when talking about this issue with your data in the NHS is quite the concern, because your data must be kept only for the purposes that it was originally collected, it must be kept securely, and it must be confidential. All of which might be thrown into a significant scrutiny if they are used on a platform which you may well question whether or not other people have access to. Now, as I say, the official word is that your data has not been shared with any other party and will not be shared with any other party. It's just that the software provided allows workers in the NHS to pull your data together and use it in an efficient way. But we also come to one of the final principles of data protection law, which is accountability. Who is responsible? Well, in the case of your NHS data, obviously NHS England is a data controller, which is responsible for the collection, the storage, and the use limitation of your personal data. And also just remember that even since Brexit, we still have the GDPR, albeit the UK retained GDPR, which includes the right to be informed, the right of access, the right of rectification, putting information right if it's wrong. There is also the right of erasure, but many people think this is an absolute right, which it isn't. Because if there's a legal basis to continue holding that information, which may just be your own health and the ability of the NHS to care for your health, then this might be an overriding legitimate ground to continue processing your data, even if you tell them to stop. So in conclusion, this is one of those scenarios where there is an official answer and the answer is in your favor, but I accept that many of you might be skeptical about it. Maybe you'll let me know in the comments what you think, whether you trust this platform to not share your data with any other company in the United States, such as Palantir, who produced the software. So let me know what you think in the comments. Please do remember to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.